In part 3 we found that by adding together many quantum reflexive processes, quantum electromagnetic oscillations, we could build atoms. Atoms built in this way come with properties of awareness, self-awareness, and sentience. In part 4 we were going to look at how these atoms and the concept of holons can build life and consciousness into the material universe. We need to find out about holons. In 1967, Arthur Koestler published a book called The Ghost in the Machine. In it he set out the notion of holons. The idea of a holon emerges from the observation that everything in nature is both a whole and a part. It is true for atoms that are a whole in themselves, but are also part of molecules that stand alone or may be part of a cell, of cells that may be single or be part of a larger organism. It is also true for human beings who have an independent life and are part of social systems. So the idea of holons looks like this. The L holon is a whole, but it is also part of the L plus 1 holon. The L plus 1 holon is a whole, but it can also be part of an L plus 2 holon. And an L plus 2 holon is a whole, but it is also part of an L plus 3 holon. This system of nested holons can continue indefinitely. We have levels of complexity that we call holarchies. Eugene Halliday, I believe, also talks about holons, but he does not name them as such. He says in his book Reflexive Self-Consciousness, "Why does a finite being imply infinite motion? Because a finite being is a motion of rotation, circumscribing itself in space. And beyond every circumscribed zone there is always an infinity of space in which further motions occur. And," he says, "to illustrate this we can draw a circle to represent a zone of rotating motion. No matter how big we make this circle, we can always conceive that we may have made it larger. There is always infinite space for us to move in beyond our circle." Holons are of course defined as circumscribed entities, and asserting that there is always an infinity of space to move into, he implies that there is space for an infinite hierarchy of holons. So what can we build with holons? For convenience we will take our lowest level holarchy to be the atom holon. The larger concentric circles represent higher level holarchies, higher levels of complexity. And the highest level holon, indicated by the outward facing arrows, is the infinite universe holon. So let's have a look at some structures and forms. The illustrations here just give an idea of how holons of different levels of holarchy can build all sorts of complex objects. Let's have a look at some real-world holons. It is important to be aware that we recognize holons by their boundaries. The pebbles are obviously holons, but so too are the sand grains on the beach, the sea stacks, the beach itself, the cliffs, the ocean, and the earth. They all have boundaries. So we are now in a position to propose a very important property of holons. We have seen that holons are defined by their boundaries, and we have discovered earlier that boundaries are part of the interfunctional reality at the quantum level. So holons with their boundaries are interfunctional entities. We also found out earlier that boundaries and sentience are interfunctional at the quantum level as well. So we can justify proposing that holons, shapes and forms, defined by their boundaries, are sentient. This proposal is quite shocking, but it is the result of simple logic. It is so astonishing, however, that we need to find evidence for it. Let's have a look. If sentience is fully interfunctional with structure and form, then it would be logical to propose that the sentience of holons would become more complex as the structure of holons became more complex. So higher levels of holarchy should manifest higher levels of sentience. Is this the case? On the left we are looking at a simple atom holon, say carbon. It is made from the quantum reflexive processes that we looked at in part 3. The carbon atom holon is aware that its simple structure has given its reflexive processes more space in which to exist. Similarly, with the water molecule, in its case, internal quantum reflexive processes extend further than in individual single atoms. So water molecules are internally aware, self-aware, that they consist of 3 individual atoms. Molecules have a higher level of sentience than atoms. We can see that complex molecule holons have an increased level of sentience. Amino acids and proteins, for instance, can feel their environment and twist and turn to maintain their structure. And with more complexity, DNA holons with their long chains have a level of sentience that enables them to code for proteins and to replicate themselves. While virus holons with their very complex structures that include DNA or RNA and a protective outer shell have a level of sentience that we recognize as being on the verge of life. And what about single-celled organisms? Amoeba holons have a level of complex form such that their awareness manifests in them having a sense of touch and the ability to use that sentience to help them survive. We definitely recognize amoeba as living organisms. They use their boundaries, their membranes, as tools. If they feel food, they surround it, metabolize it, and grow. If they feel danger, they move away. If they get too big, they divide and reproduce. Amoeba have a high level of awareness and self-awareness, a high level of sentience. They act very intelligently to survive. And with more complex form, more sentience, this oak tree holon is aware of light and the passing of the seasons, uses its leaf holons as semi-disposable organs to maintain its existence. It acts intelligently to survive. And you don't need me to tell you how wonderfully intelligent these elephant holons are, or how they use their trunk holons as very sophisticated tools. We, of course, have a very complex form, so we are a very complex holon, and we come with very complex sentience. It seems that the proposal that Holons are sentient is borne out merely by observing ourselves and looking around us. Indeed, we have a word for our very complex human sentience that comes with our very complex human form. We call it consciousness. So, starting from Eugene Halliday's assertion that sentience must be present at the very roots of the universe, we have seen how his ideas of interfunctionality and circumscription, codified as holons, accounts for the emergence of life and consciousness. In this scheme of thinking, in this paradigm, conscious life is not something mysterious that comes by magic into a mechanical universe. Life and consciousness are inevitable properties of a universe built from quantum reflexive processes. So where do we go from here? Well, I would suggest that we need to see whether our insight into the nature of sentient holons can help us understand how our minds work and what thinking is all about. But first, in part 5, I would like to talk about tool making and cyborgs. I want to talk about these because we will see why we are so successful as a species. Tool making gives us great existential advantages. But significantly, we will see how it comes at a price.